I don't know about you, but I haven't seen much from Dr. Fauci now in literally weeks. He still does appearances, but they tend not to be sort of big front and center presentations of the government's stance on the coronavirus. But he did have a virtual conversation just recently hosted by Stanford Medicine, where he was pretty critical of the U.S. response to coronavirus so far and had this to say about the fact that many states are now seeing absolute explosions of the virus. He said, "We did not shut down entirely, and that's the reason why we went up. We started to come down, and then we plateaued at a level that was really quite high, about 20,000 infections a day. Then, as we started to reopen, we're seeing the surges that we're seeing today as we speak." And he went on to say, "We made a set of guidelines a few months ago. Unfortunately, it did not work out very well for us. We can get a handle on that. I am really confident we can if we step back. You don't necessarily need to shut down again, but pull back a bit and then proceed in a very prudent way." So look, Jordan, I think obviously he's right about the first time. The rush to reopen, we criticized it at the time. It was premature, and it has had the consequences that we predicted. I do find it interesting that Fauci is not calling for total shutdowns again, even though some states are worse hit now than they were in the first wave. What do you think about that?
I worry. I worry about what he's saying and how it might be impacted by what we're seeing out of the White House and how they're seeking to discredit him. Not that he would lie or mislead, but I worry about how he's tempering his language to kind of try to stay in somewhat good graces, even though this might be a futile effort, but at least to try to stay in good graces just so he doesn't get fired. Because maybe his rationale and his calculation is, hey, at the very least, maybe maybe someone here will listen to me, and if he's just in there a little bit longer. So I do worry about what he's, just generally speaking, what he's doing and why he might be out of the spotlight. I mean, the likely reason why he's out of the spotlight is they won't let him get in front of a camera because they don't want him to contradict the president.
Well, I mean, they've been apparently blocking interviews, not for all media outlets, but for a number of them. And we've reached out to him. He hasn't been on here. So apparently the White House has a vendetta against TDR. Or he doesn't care. But yeah, you think that he might be sort of trying to thread the needle on this?
Yeah, I think a lot of people's calculations, even at the beginning, because people were trying to hype up that tension between Fauci and Trump. You remember that at the beginning? And other people were kind of warning, like, let's not do this. Like, this doesn't need to be like an us against Trump thing because this guy's an expert. Let's have him at least in proximity to top decision makers, and I think it's better in the long run if even he's maligned that he's there at least espousing his opinion.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, I know you said, like, not saying he's lying or anything, but like the thing is, like, do I trust him? Generally, yes, but I don't believe in having any gods in politics, and if I did, it wouldn't be him. I trust him more than any other public face of the government response to this pandemic, and I think while I'm not ready to have like a cartoon of him on my shirt or anything like some people are, I do think it's important that we have someone that is trusted, because so few people have earned any trust since the beginning. Literally, the biggest faces in politics and media have been universally wrong about this. And I'm talking about in media. I'm talking mostly about like Tucker Carlson, Sean Hannity, Laura Ingraham, stuff like that. They've been lying from the very beginning. So it's important to have Dr. Fauci. And that is why you alluded to the White House campaign against him. That's not what I want to see. And I really did think that we had gotten past that. That tension you talked about, like that fired up a couple of times. And there were these sort of public disagreements about the White House press conferences. I thought that once they stopped those and Trump, basically forgot that there was a pandemic happening, I thought we were out of the woods on the whole plot to take down Fauci. But the thing is that Fox never got off of that. They've been demonizing him this entire time. Conspiracy theories have been brewing up about him and, any manner of connections to Bill Gates and all that stuff. And so it was perhaps premature to think that we had gotten past that. And now we're where we're at, which is the White House basically sending out opposition research against him while Kayleigh McEnany tries to pretend that she doesn't know what people are talking about.
I don't know what to say anymore. It's like, I knew this was going to be a bad 4 years. I don't think I could have imagined, or maybe anybody could have imagined it would get this bad. That they're just attacking, an expert from the CDC in the middle of a global pandemic. Like, it's just...
Well, and attacking bizarre. The CDC. Like, a Chuck Woolery tweet that Trump retweeted. Like, remember he He wore the mask and got a bunch of credit, and then immediately started going back to attacking science afterward. But anyway, so look, the crazy thing is, I learned recently, Fauci hasn't been in direct contact with the president in more than 5 weeks. Like, think about how much has changed in the pandemic in 5 weeks. New world epicenters have been established in the U.S., in multiple U.S. states. And what do we have as a response? We have this. White House Deputy Chief of Staff for Communications and Director of Social Media, Daniel Scavino Jr., shared this. Dr. Faucett with his, I don't even know what, like that Fauci killed the NFL season and schools should be stay closed. That's just Fauci. The indefinite lockdowns. Like insane Ben Garrison cartoons about Fauci that like the top digital messenger for the White House is gleefully spreading. But we're supposed to believe that it's not opposition research. I mean, they're not trying to take him down or anything like that. I know. I don't know what to say either. But it's going to
get bad. It's going to get bad. And everyone else, I mean, this is an anecdote that, I'm not a wrestling fan, but my buddies are. And there's apparently a Japanese wrestling league that is already back to having events with crowds because they were so responsible at the onset that they're now in a position where their infections are so low and transmission is so low there now that they're already back to having events. Mm-hmm. Think about that. We have to think about that and the spirit of collectivism that countries like Japan have that allows them to do that so quickly. And here we are where deputy communications or communications directors for the president are maligning a medical expert. Mm-hmm. I cannot comprehend it.
Yeah, they're having events, whereas we started opening up not just before we got a handle on the virus, but before we had the testing apparatus to know what the state of the virus was in a lot of states. We honestly did, like Georgia and Texas and Florida, all of them started reopening before we had any idea what was actually going on. And they didn't do it because scientists were saying, well, this looks safe. They did it because, 5% of the country, the craziest right-wingers, started protesting about the Constitution being shredded. I'm assuming Japan probably didn't have that. So they have a few things up on us. And another reason that Trump and the White House might again be going for Fauci is the same reason as always, ratings. Trump, according to the Washington Post, is apparently mad that Fauci is still popular. People, trust him. 67% of voters trust him for information on coronavirus compared with 26% who trust Trump, which isn't even his normal base, which means even some of them don't necessarily trust him. And the thing is, for Trump, it's not improving. Like, the percent who disapprove of his response has been trending up, and the gap is as big as it has been at any point in this pandemic, which is important, too, because I've been, I think, rightfully frustrated by people's apparent lack of continuing concern about the pandemic, but that doesn't mean that they've switched back to thinking Trump is doing a great job. They might have sort of detached from the news, but they maintain their anger at the way that the government has flubbed this entire thing. But anyway, yeah, I agree with you. The fact that the only thing that seems to get the White House fired up during this pandemic is cutting unemployment benefits and attacking the CDC, that's not what you'd want in month 5 of a pandemic. For more political news, breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.